Hello and welcome to this episode of BariAftercare, the podcast. Today I'm going to be telling you a story, so sit back, relax, and let's get ready. In fact, this is a story that I mean to put out as an ebook, and one day I'm going to get around to that. In the meantime, enjoy the story, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. I wrote this a long, long time ago. And if you have done your pre-surgical evaluation with me, then you have heard this story before. If not, this is brand new to you, and I think you're going to kind of get a kick out of it because I'm guessing this is nothing you've ever thought about before. But the title of the story is Weight Loss Surgery is Like a Wedding. So I want you to sit back, get comfortable, unless you're driving, then pay attention. But I'm going to tell you this story, and I want you to picture it as clearly as possible as I describe this scenario to you. And the scenario is a couple of starry-eyed young people, and oh man, they are madly crazy in love. And this couple is so smitten, and they have decided, you know what? We love each other so much, we are going to get married. Well, they become engaged, and this all takes place on an enchanted evening, and they immediately begin making their plans to do what? Live happily ever after, duh. Well, most of their friends and relatives are thrilled for them. They offer their congratulations. They say, we support you. We're going to encourage you. We're going to help you. Why, we're even going to help you plan the wedding. Now, other people who know the couple are, whether openly or maybe in private, they're questioning the decision of this young couple to take that big old plunge into matrimony. They wonder if this young couple, are they too young? Are they ready? Do they think they're really aware of what they're getting into? Oh, but our young couple, forget about it. They're not paying attention to any kind of negativity. Of course, they know the statistics about marriage and divorce. But they are in love, and they intend to stay that way forever. Of course, they understand that there are going to be rough patches in marriage, but they're certain they're going to sail right through those murky waters and get back into smooth sailing in no time. They plan to talk through any and all issues that arise that bring strife into their relationship. They have even attended 3 required marriage preparation classes, and they are ready to get this show on the road. After all, there's a wedding to plan. Well, if you're like me and you've been married a decade or 2 or 3, or in my case, 4, those of us who've been there, we sit back, we smile, we think, oh my gosh, I used to be that young couple. We used to be that young couple. We were in their shoes once upon a long time ago. We fully believed we would breeze through any tough spots encountered on the meandering roads of marriage. We knew we would be able to skate through any of the obstacles that came along our path with great ease, of course. At other times in these 4 decades, I don't know about you, but I wondered, and my husband wondered, are we ever going to survive this thing? One thing's for sure. People who've been married for any length of time know that the easy times in marriage ebb and flow, and they know that every day of a healthy marriage requires the E word, effort. Now, there is a relevant point to all this marriage talk. Many years ago at this point, over a decade ago actually, all of our 3 children got married within a 10-month period of time. 3 weddings, 10 months. Needless to say, our lives were all wedding focused. And it occurred to me as we went through the process of our kids' wedding planning that the surgical weight loss planning, the surgical weight loss journey, and these weddings, they actually had a lot in common. So as you listen to the rest of this story, enjoy the lightheartedness of this comparison, but more importantly, listen for the really important messages that are related specifically to your weight loss surgery process. Now let's get back to our couple who are smitten and in love. Leading up to that marriage proposal, the lovebirds, you know how they do. They talk, they daydream for hours on end. They're giddy. Oh my gosh, we have finally found one another. And they're super grateful that their turn has finally arrived. The one true love they've waited for their whole life has been delivered. Married life is going to be everything they ever dreamed of, and they can finally see the path to their very own happily ever after. The first step, of course, was that engagement. And that question alone presents another whole list of questions. It's like, gosh, is the timing right for us to get engaged? Where should I pop the question? The ring, is the ring just right? Do I need to talk to the parents? Then there's the question. Will you marry me? Okay. What about the person who's considering weight loss surgery? They too do a lot of pondering and daydreaming, but they're dreaming about what weight loss surgery could mean for them. How would they look after losing weight? How might they feel after losing a lot of excess weight? Maybe they've waited years, or perhaps it's been a lifetime for them to find a real option for finally losing that excess weight. And now, here it is. The opportunity's arrived. This means their dreams can finally come true. They can actually see a light to their happily ever after. And like that marriage proposal, there's a lot of questions related to the proposal of a surgical weight loss procedure. For example, is the timing right? Just like the engagement proposal, right? Do I have insurance coverage? Do I have enough information? How do I know this is going to work? And then the question, should I or shouldn't I have bariatric surgery? For both the marriage proposal and the surgical proposal, there comes a decision. We will get married. I will have weight loss surgery. Back to our couple, okay? Think about it. The minute a love-struck young couple's formally betrothed, the wedding planning begins. The list of decisions to make, it's mind-boggling. What month should we get married in? Where are we going to have the wedding? What about the reception? What venue should we choose? How many attendants are we going to have? What sort of flowers are we going to have? What kind of music do we want? Who should officiate? Who are we going to invite? How much is this thing going to cost? The details seem endless. Blood tests, a marriage license, bridesmaids' gifts, flower choices, menu options, music, arrangements. Oh, yeah. And do we have to go to those marriage classes? After all, things are so great with us. Sure, maybe half of all marriages do fail, but that won't be us. We are going to do this right. Like our couple, eager to get married, once a person has definitively made the decision to have weight loss surgery, the attention turns to the details. When should I plan to have the surgery? What hospital am I going to go to? Who's my surgeon going to be? What type of surgery should I have? Who are my support people? Who should I invite with me on this journey? How much is this going to cost? The details here, too, seem endless. There's the endoscopy, the sleep study, the blood tests, the EKG, the nutritional evaluation, the psychological evaluation. Oh, and do I really have to go through the hassle of all those nutrition classes and that psych eval before I have the surgery? Yes, 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 yes. I know a lot of people who have weight loss surgery gain some or all of their weight back, but I'm different. I know what I'm doing. I will do this right. Engaged people and people preparing for weight loss surgery go through periods of intense enthusiasm, but they can also experience some of the same doubts during the period of time leading up to that big event. Maybe not all of the family members, maybe not all of their friends respond with the level of enthusiasm or support they hoped for, or maybe that they expected. The betrothed partners and the surgical candidate may have unpleasant questions pop up in their minds. Questions like, what if I'm not really ready? What if something goes wrong? What if? Well, what if? What if? There's a lot of what ifs, and these are normal doubts, and they make an appearance in the process of preparing for a wedding or preparing for weight loss surgery. But in spite of these doubts, most people come to the conclusion, yep, I'm ready. I'm prepared. I know this is what I want to do, and I know I am going to be successful. So here we are, onward and forward. Now, before we get to the actual wedding ceremony or the actual surgery part of the story, and definitely before we talk about any kind of honeymoon, I want to pause and focus on the serious messages in this talk, in this story. A wedding for sure. It's a very, very exciting event, obviously. And there's always the hope of that happy and healthy future. But friends, a wedding is not the same thing as a marriage. I'm going to repeat that. A wedding is absolutely not the same thing as a marriage. Marriage requires a daily commitment. It requires daily, consistent effort if a person is going to have results that last a lifetime. Weight loss surgery, also very exciting proposition, right? There's also the hope of a healthy outcome and a happy future. But weight loss surgery, my friends, is not the same thing as daily life following the procedure. And I'm going to repeat that one too. Weight loss surgery is not the same thing as life following the procedure, because maintaining the weight loss after surgery absolutely requires a daily commitment. Without a doubt, requires consistent effort to have lifelong success. So both the engaged couple and a person considering weight loss surgery need to ask themselves some important questions. What are my reasons for getting married? Am I getting married in order to have this great wedding, to have this awesome reception and have that honeymoon? Or am I getting married to have a long, healthy relationship with a person I love and treasure? People having weight loss surgery need to seriously ask themselves, what's my purpose in doing this? Is it to get through the procedure and lose the weight and find some not so magical number on a scale? Or am I planning to have this procedure so that I can keep this weight off, improve my health, and increase the quality of my life for the long haul? What are my reasons? What's my why? For so many people, the goal of chronic dieting has been to lose weight. And once they do that, they've accomplished the goal and then game over, right? Back to life as usual, which often means going back to the same old unhealthy habits. And you know what that means. The weight is regained almost immediately. So the goals that you have before surgery are extraordinarily important. You're like, yeah. But why do I need to dedicate an entire ebook or an entire podcast to this topic? And I'm going to tell you why, because I have literally conducted thousands of pre-surgical evaluations. And I have been assured by just about everybody that they are completely ready. They promise that they're going to eat the way the dietitian tells them to. They pinky swear they're going to exercise on a regular basis for the rest of their lives. And they vow to do away with all the simple processed carbs. Now, I know that each person I meet with genuinely means what they're telling me at the time. And yet, I have witnessed, and you probably know some people as well, who have said these same things prior to having surgery or prior to getting married. You know, they're going to sustain these behaviors and they swear they're going to do this before they have the surgery and going to do it for the rest of their lives. Now, that's a big, big promise, right? What I want you to remember, and depending on where you're at in this journey, you may already know this. The surgery is going to help you get that weight off, but it's not a guarantee to keep that weight off. So, again, ask yourself, are you having this surgery with the intention of improving your health and improving the quality of your life, or are you secretly trying to find a specific number? Because that is not a really good reason. Yes, losing the weight is awesome. A specific number, not so awesome, because that is not going to give you any better health or happiness than 2 pounds above or below, whatever your magical number is. Now, I'm going to ask you, as I go through the next part of this story, I want you to keep a really, really open mind. And it's not going to seem to make any sense, maybe, but I'm going to tie it all together for you, and it will make sense. I heard this information one day when I was sitting on a swing on my back porch. And I was listening to a podcast, and it was by Andy Stanley, who is actually a preacher. But what I love about him is that he talks about issues that are really relevant to our everyday lives, and he makes them real down to earth. And that particular day, he was given a talk about marriage. And let me tell you, I was listening to this and was just blown away when he started saying a lot of the same things about people getting married that I say to people when I am doing a pre-surgical evaluation. So I'm going to share with you some of the things he said. And again, he was talking about marriage, but I was talking about weight loss surgery, but they're so similar. So Andy was talking about marriage and the promises people make when they take their vows. You know, he was talking about how the couple fully intends to follow through with these wedding vows. However, as you and I both know, a lot of people actually struggle to follow through with these matrimonial promises. And Andy was saying that the reason a lot of people fail to follow through with their wedding vows is because, and I quote, people make promises they're not prepared to keep. So I heard this and I thought, people make promises they're not prepared to keep. And I thought, that's what I try to tell people about the behaviors they need to change after the weight loss surgery. They're making promises to eat right. They're making promises to exercise. They're making promises to cut back on the processed foods. But the truth is, people aren't always able to follow through with those promises because they're not really prepared to. All right, bear with me and listen. So Andy says that when people make the promises during their wedding ceremony, they're really sincere. They genuinely, and he says, they mean well. He's talking about marriage. And I say the same thing, but about people getting ready to have weight loss surgery. I know when people tell me they're ready, they're going to eat right, they are going to exercise, they're going to meal prep. When they tell me they're going to do all these things, I know that they mean it. I know that they mean well. I also know that a lot of times after a wedding or after the bariatric surgery, people start saying, this is hard. I mean, this is really, really hard. I meant what I said, but come on, this is hard. So Andy went on talking and said what I try to say and convey to people. He said, promises are no substitution for preparation. Okay. Then he talked about signing up for a race. Maybe it's a 5K or a 10K. But he said signing up for the race is not the same thing as doing the race. So if a person signs up for a 5K or a 10K, we're going to hope they prepare in advance because we want them to finish the race and not harm themselves in the process. So, if somebody's not been a runner and they don't have a good pair of running shoes and they don't learn to stretch properly and they don't learn the breathing techniques and, they don't start running some increased distances in preparation for this race, they might not be able to complete it. Runners have got to prepare. So Andy went on to say, people think I can promise my way past a lack of preparation. I got really excited hearing this. I thought, yeah, that's exactly what happens with a lot of people getting ready to have weight loss surgery. All right, listen to it again. People think I can promise my way past a lack of preparation. People really do think that they can make promises, but they may not be prepared to keep those promises. So a lot of people getting ready to have weight loss surgery, they promise the doctor, they promise the nutritionist, they promise me, all sorts of things that sound really good, and they mean them at the time. But I'm telling you, if people don't start training or living as though they've had surgery right from the get-go, it's going to be harder later on. Now, you may have had your surgery last week or last month or 2 years ago. It's never too late to prepare, which is the good news. So this message is not just for people who are still planning to have surgery. We're going to talk about that. But the message continued to get better. So here's what Andy said, again, about people at the altar. Saying I do doesn't prepare you or make you capable of doing something. Wow. Saying I do doesn't make you prepared, and it doesn't make you able to do something. He said saying I do makes you accountable. So you've said you're going to do something, and when you say you're going to do something, that means I expect you to do it. You're accountable. Being accountable, he said, for something you're not prepared or able to do, well, that just makes you miserable. Oh my gosh, I was thinking it is so true. I thought, if you're not prepared to do something, or if you're not able to do something, but you're making a promise, and now that makes you accountable, that does mean you're going to be miserable. So I'm going to tell you, when my husband and I got married, I was, how old was I, 23, 22? I was 22 years old, and I'm standing there, and he's standing there, and we're making our vows, and I promised to be, love is patient, love is kind, love is, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, heck, I'm not patient, and I'm not always that kind, but I'm standing there making these promises in front of God and everybody, and I wasn't prepared, and I wasn't able to follow through with those promises because I never learned how to be patient. I was raised by very impatient people who were not very kind to one another. So what I knew about marriage was impatience and unkindness. And I'm standing there at the altar saying, I do promise to be patient and kind. The Corinthians thing, love is patient, love is kind, love never, whatever it is. I wasn't capable. I wasn't prepared. So here I had made vows. I had said I do. I said I promise. But I wasn't capable. I wasn't prepared. That made me miserable because I wanted to be those things, but I didn't have the first idea how to do them. And that's what happens with a lot of bariatric patients. They're like, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to exercise. But if you haven't been able to do it in the past, it's not likely you're going to be able to do it in the present. And so people make these promises, but they're not really prepared. They haven't learned anything new from the last time they lost and regained weight. And they're accountable, and now they're just darn miserable. Ew, that's tough, right? So think about, in what ways have you maybe been unprepared in the past? Maybe you haven't learned how to stop emotional eating. Maybe you have an addiction to sugar and you haven't been prepared to give it up. So are there any ways, regardless of where you're at in your journey, that you're feeling unprepared? So if there are, don't lose heart, because there are ways that you can prepare as you go along. And we're going to get to that, all right? Hang tight. I want to tell you some more of the comments that Andy was making, and then we'll talk about, again, more comparisons between the process of trying to have a healthy marriage and process of trying to keep this weight off for a lifetime. So Andy was telling this story about a public figure. Apparently this is a true story, but I don't know. Anyway, he said that this public figure was arrested for public drunkenness. And the person said, I had the right to remain silent, but I didn't have the ability to do so. Right? He had the legal right to remain silent, but because he was drunk, he had blabbermouth. He didn't have the ability to keep his mouth shut. So I was thinking, well, maybe the people who are listening to this are going to argue that they are capable. Yes, I am capable. And they believe they are, but I kind of have some doubts because history says another story. They've lost and gained weight, lost and gained weight. Why is surgery going to make things different? So as I was thinking about all of this stuff, I hear Andy's voice in this podcast I was listening to saying, do you have the ability to pull this off? Again, he's talking about marriage. I'm thinking about weight loss surgery. And he says commitment is overrated. Commitment is overrated. If you commit to something you can't do, he said, the commitment's worthless. If you make a promise to do something you're unable or unprepared to do, the promise is worthless. So have you made promises to your significant others, your family members, your children, your whoever it is, that I'm going to change this time? I know this costs a ton of money, and I promise I am committed. I'm going to do it this time. And that happens for a lot of people, right? And they believe it. They believe they're ready to change. They believe they're committed. And a lot of people actually have a lot of doubts inside. And actually, when somebody tells me that they have doubts about their ability to keep the weight off, I'm kind of relieved, because that makes more sense to me than somebody says, I got this, I got this. Because if you got this, it's likely you'd have been able to keep the weight off in the past, right? So here's what Andy was saying. Listen carefully to this. Your ability to commit to do something does not override your ability to follow through. Oof. So I can verbally commit to doing something. I commit. I'm telling you right now, I commit to being patient and kind in this marriage, or I commit to the healthy eating and the exercising. But it doesn't override my ability to follow through. And I, as a young wife, was not capable of following through because I didn't have the skills. So you might be incapable if you don't have the skills. And he said, you cannot automatically change. A lack of preparation cannot be trumped by a promise. So just because you're having surgery, just because you stand at the altar and say, I do, it's not going to automatically change anything. A lack of preparation or not learning new skills, in this case, can't be trumped by a promise. That is really, really powerful. So he went on to clarify some of this. That if you think about it, when it comes to marriage or weight loss, people aren't really motivated to make a change until there's a problem. So think about it. Maybe you made the decision to have weight loss surgery because the doctor said, listen, if you don't lose some of these pounds, your diabetes is going to be out of control. Or maybe you were being a little proactive and said, I'm heading in that direction and I want to prevent this, which is great. But think about marriage. People don't go to couples counseling unless there's a problem. So Andy talked about the importance of preparing to be able to make a commitment. In other words, when a person gets married, you need to prepare or learn how to follow through with the things you're committing to. If you've been unable to keep your weight off before, then you need to learn some new skills to be able to do it this time. You've dieted, you've probably lost weight, you committed to the healthy eating and the smaller portions and the exercise, but maybe you gained that weight back. So how do you prepare for it to be different this time? Well, the bariatric programs have the nutrition classes and all these things in place to help you begin to prepare. So if you are in the process of preparing, take those things seriously. If you're in a place where you're struggling with regain, or if you're like, I just can't seem to stop emotional eating, it's okay because you can still learn. But Andy was saying, and you've heard this before too, a person's past behavior is the best predictor for their future behavior. It's like, oh crap. I say this all the time in therapy, and it's true. He said, the past is a better indicator than a promise. The past is a better indicator than a promise. So if your past is, I've lost weight, but I've always gained it back, that's a much better indicator than a promise to do different this time. Now, I know that can be disheartening because if you think, well, where have you been and where are you headed? It's like, well, crap. I've lost and gained weight lots of times, but I just promised all these things. I promised my family, I promised the doctors I'm going to make these changes. But if my past is the best indicator and more of an indicator than a promise, does that mean I am going to gain all my weight back? No, because wherever you are in this stage, and like myself in my new marriage when I was young, you can commit at any point in the journey to becoming a person who can keep their commitment. So as I shared with you, I didn't have the skills to be patient and kind. So my husband and I, about 7 years into our marriage, 3 kids later, as people do, busy lives, kids, all the things, we were not doing too well as a couple. I wasn't being very patient. I wasn't being very kind. And for that matter, neither was he. So we had a problem. And that's when we decided to get help. And what we learned we needed to do was to prepare to have a healthy relationship. Meaning we had to take some parenting classes. We wanted to be better parents than our parents had been. We needed to take some couples counseling so that we could learn some healthier communication. We needed to do a lot of couples counseling so that we could learn to set boundaries with each other. We need to do personal counseling individually so I could learn how to deal with my intense emotions and be a little more patient. So it all boils down to this. You make promises before surgery, you make promises before marriage. You've made promises in the past, maybe you weren't able to follow through to keep that weight off. But you can always start today and go, you know what? I am going to learn the skills I need to do so that I am prepared to be successful. I'm going to learn what it takes to follow through with the motivation to get out there and exercise, 5 months into the journey when I usually quit exercising. I'm going to learn the skills for being disciplined enough to do the meal prep. I'm going to learn the skills it takes to deal with stress so I don't emotionally eat. So even if you're like, oh crap, I've made all these promises, clearly I don't have the skills, you can still learn. And that's the positive message here. I want your weight loss to be permanent, and I know you do too, for sure, more than I do. But if you keep going back to the bad habits because it's what you know to do, then you're going to get the same result. So we've got to learn new skills, new tools. If I wanted to learn to be patient and kind, which trust me, I'm still not I'm still not patient by nature, but I can definitely be kind in spite of feeling impatient. So I've learned some skills, some tools along the way so that these 40 years of marriage have become better and better and better over time. So, the other thing is, it's kind of funny because they say, people ask me about, getting married and whatever. I say, it's not if there are going to be problems. It's how willing are you to learn something new when there are problems. So it's like with weight loss, if you start falling into those bad habits, are you willing to learn new skills? Are you willing to go to a therapist? Are you willing to see the dietitian? Are you willing to get a personal trainer? Are you willing to get a bariatric coach? Are you willing to do the hard work and learn the new skills? Because if you are, chances are good you can change the behaviors. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you liked sugar before surgery, you're going to like sugar after surgery. If you didn't like your mother-in-law before the wedding, you're not going to like her just because you had a wedding. So things don't just change because there was a surgery or there was a wedding. You got to do the work to learn the skills to make the changes. So, everything's great after surgery, or maybe initially after the wedding, you have the honeymoon, and you're going to get tired of it. You're going to get tired of making all the healthy choices. You're going to get tired of the exercise. You're going to get tired of going to the gym. You're going to get tired of saying no to something when everybody else in the family is enjoying whatever that happens to be. It's not pleasant, but it's true. Just like I've known many people who are very patient and kind, I am not. So I have had to put in more hard work and more effort to learn new skills. So you've got a tool with the surgery, but you're going to have to put in a lot of effort and time to learn how to use these when the motivation wanes. Happens in marriages. You get tired of putting forth the effort. You get tired of being the one to always say where we're going to dinner. You get tired of being the one to say, could you help me out? Or you get tired of being... You have to put forth the effort even when you get tired. So you want to enjoy the lifelong success, but you have to remember, you cannot, if you make promises you're unable to keep, you're going to be miserable. And the past is a better indicator than a promise. So you have to start preparing. So the first thing you have to do is make a commitment to doing, not just thinking, oh, I wish I were more motivated to exercise. That would be like me saying, I wish I were more patient. Well, I'm not. I wish I were. I wish I had a softer tone of voice. Well, I didn't. I had to learn. I had to learn the skills. And like I said, we went through a lot of therapy, individual, couples group, individual groups. So a commitment, my friend, requires action. You can't just say, I'm committed. You have to put forth the effort, and you have to put some action behind the words. So there might be a lot of reasons you weren't able to follow through with healthy behaviors in the past. There are reasons I wasn't a very patient and kind young wife. But what you can do right now is make that commitment to become more prepared. I'm always becoming more prepared in my life. I've been married over 4 decades, and I still have to learn new skills. I still have to practice. I still have to put forth the effort when I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this. Whatever this might be, trying to use a nice tone of voice or trying to not roll my eyes or whatever my unhealthy behaviors might be. So you too have to make a commitment to put forth the effort through action so that you can be a person who does what it takes, not just talks about doing what it takes. You want to be the person who follows through. So when it's time to be accountable, when it's time to get up and go do the meal prep, when it's time to take those bariatric specific vitamins, when it's time to continue to drink water, when it's time to eat that protein, which is every time you eat, and you're sick of it, you're going to be accountable because you've learned about discipline. You've learned about following through. You've learned about persistence. You've learned about how to get through the tough times without emotional eating. And you've learned that because you've put forth effort and you've taken action steps. So what's it going to be? You're the one who's going to have to decide, and you got to set yourself up through all the other things that we've talked about in these podcast episodes. Who are your support people? Are they healthy support people or are they not? Are you using goals? Are you writing down your goals? Being specific. I plan to be able to walk around the block rather than I want to move my body. Being very specific with your goals. Remember, commitment, my friends, is overrated. If you commit to something you can't do, then the commitment is worthless. So you've got to learn to do the things to follow through with your commitment. And that is how you succeed, because you can't automatically change. You can't automatically change. You can't promise your way past the work, past the effort, past the doing. So get busy. Start preparing, because the good news is we can prepare every single day. And we prepare by saying, today I will call a therapist. Today I will go see my personal trainer. We prepare by learning the skills that we lack. So take an inventory. What are you lacking in that maybe you promised you were going to do? Because you want to have your happily ever after, whether it's your marriage, your weight loss journey, your job, your parenting, whatever it is. I hope you enjoyed the story about weight loss surgery being like a wedding. And when that ebook comes out, I want you to be the first to click on that and download it. But I hope you will share this with people, because it's so true. Living a life day in and day out as a post-op is nothing like preparing for the surgery. Living life day in and day out as a healthy partner or spouse or friend is nothing like having a wedding. It takes effort, and you are the only one who can do it. And I've encouraged you to do this particular thing many times in the past. Go on to YouTube and click Mel Robbins and listen to Nobody's Coming. Nobody's coming to do this for you. Nobody's going to come and prepare your meals for you. Nobody's going to come and do your exercise for you. Nobody's coming. So if is to be, it is up to thee. So make up your mind to become prepared every day of your life to be a better version of yourself and a person who can and does follow through with what you say you want. You deserve your happily ever after, but you've got to create it. So I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you for spending your time with me. I appreciate you very, very much. And I will be with you in the next episode. Bye-bye.